That's just where I was like, okay, where are you? I was gonna make
Yeah,
sure
I've
I get
been
done.
I've been lurking. I've been
Awesome. So
lurking a little bit in the background.
nothing wrong with that. So hey, we'll get started off with the quick video, and then I'll knock out an introduction as soon as I can, because I'm not the fastest one. I got so many screens going. You see it?
Natural disasters are full of chaos. Those impacted are often overwhelmed. The question everyone asks after the storm is, what now? Crisis relief and recovery exists to help guide others through this chaos. We train and deploy high-performing leadership teams with the hearts to serve and the skills to lead. Our goal is to reduce the time between disaster and recovery. We do that by helping local leaders and national partners know exactly where and how to be most effective. We bring clarity to the work that needs to be done and mobilize volunteers and resources to assist. We commit to making every place better than before, and we will not leave communities until they are stronger, serving each other, and believing in something bigger than themselves. We are the first to arrive and the last to leave. We are crisis, relief, and recovery.
Oh, a little bit of a hype video to get started, but and of course, as soon as I closed that, it killed my other screen. So hey, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Dave Hearn. Dave's a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer who, after a decade of service and two deployments to Iraq supporting special ops, transitioned to the nonprofit sector to make a broader impact. He pioneered organizations focused on leadership development, faith, risk, and initiation, and today serves as a co-founder and director of operations at Crisis Relief and Recovery, CRR. There, he leads volunteer-driven efforts to train, prepare, and deploy skilled teams for disaster response, relief, recovery, and long-term community restoration worldwide. His work highlights the power of volunteerism, resilience, and partnerships in crises, offering inspiring lessons for transitioning veterans on leveraging skills for community service. Dave, thanks for joining us, coming in and tell your story. I very much appreciate it. Did I manage to get it all in there? Oh, think you're muted. You're muted. Dave, you're muted.
Oh, okay. Well, I got it now.
There you
I was
go.
saying, yeah, thank goodness this is recorded. I'll have to share it with my mom. She'll be really impressed.
Well, I mean,
Thank
you
you.
kind of
That was a
earned it. You
really good intro.
Thank you. You've been out there busting your hump,
Yeah,
man, so you
sure.
definitely earned it. Um, hey, so let's
I
just go
appreciate it.
right to the
I
beginning.
appreciate it.
So after that second Iraq deployment, you said you just couldn't slide back into the old Air Force gig. So what hit you during those tours that made you realize it was time for that change?
Yeah, I was so yeah, Air Force intel officer. My first 8 years sort of pretty normal intel jobs. I was a OSS flight commander for a little while. Did group staff in Germany. Did some neat things, but then I got picked to deploy with JSOC on my last 2 years, and that really it was like pulling back the curtain on sort of like, oh, this is what really is going on in the Middle East and against Al Qaeda in Iraq at that time. So I'm aging myself a little bit, but but yeah, so what I did there and the missions we had and the men and women that I worked with so impressed me that I could not go back to my job, my normal desk job, briefing colonels and generals on the latest and greatest things going on with Russia, China, North Korea when I knew there was a fantastic mission going on, where the real tip of the spear, as they say, was happening, and I learned some great things from the leadership there. Had the benefit of sort of close daily contact with the leadership there, and yeah, it was hard to go back to normal life. So. I could sort of stay in that rotation of going back and forth to the desert every year or every other year. But with a small family at home, I wanted to spend time with them, and I realized my I couldn't sit at a desk, but I wanted to use those same things I learned, that same feeling of really being at the forefront of a mission that was important, but to do that in the civilian world. So that really started my journey, my transition journey out of the Air Force and into mostly the nonprofit sector.
Well, looking back, I mean, what clues from your time in uniform scream that nonprofit or civilian life maybe better suited your skills or fire?
Yeah, so for me, it was I sort of grew up, with faith. I grew up with a family that served others, and that was part of, my dad was a social worker, and he worked with sort of those people that couldn't care for themselves. My mom was a teacher, so I guess that was baked into me a little bit, but as well. Just that desire to use my powers for good in a lot of ways. The things I had learned to do things I was passionate about and to help people. So yeah, going into the nonprofit sector was sort of an easy one for me. Worked sort of internationally at first, and even now I'm doing a lot of work based out of England, but back and forth to America a lot. Doing some international work in disaster relief as well as in the States. So yeah, I talked earlier to you about when I dabbled into the the profit world, the commercial world during COVID when I was laid off from my job and had to work at Amazon. And, you know, good pay. They had a great program to help military veterans sort of integrate in and use their skills. But I found that for me, really, squeezing the most out of people and trying to get the most money for a big corporation just wasn't my bag, and really tried to get back into that nonprofit world where I could help people and see people recover from their own personal disasters.
Yeah, I've had buddies at Amazon. Like the refrain is always the same: the pay is great, but boy, it's almost like the military, except the pay is better. Yeah, they're going to
Yeah.
get it out of you, and that's if you're willing to
And
make
and
that
that was
change.
my thought. Like even in the military, I had something, that I was passionate about. I was passionate about the mission. I felt called to serve my country. I really didn't feel that same calling to serve Amazon or in the commercial world. So that sort of intrinsic desire just wasn't there.
So, I mean, what was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back from corporate to go into the volunteer space? Was it the calling? I'm guessing that's what it was for you, right?
That's it, really. I had right after the military, I had gone into nonprofit world humanitarian aid. It was a faith-based mission that I was doing there for 5 years, training people to go out into austere the bush of Africa or into Southeast Asia, using teaching them the leadership skills and the entrepreneurial skills that I had created and built while I was in the military. Those skills we don't think about, but are super practical for people, especially if they feel like they want to work in some pretty austere places. So I use that, and that just really just snowballed, and have been in the nonprofit sector except for that little dabble during COVID, that really sort of locked in like this isn't for me.
For you, that was an 18-month experience of, okay, now I know what I don't want.
Yeah.
So hey, at least it was a well-paid experience.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. My stock options didn't mature, but other than that, it was all right. Helped me qualify for a mortgage for my house, so that's good.
Yeah, hey, sometimes that's the best way to go about it. So, what lit the fire for you to launch these nonprofits stateside? I mean, even in Spain, and
Mhm.
elsewhere, how'd you weave those military lessons about leadership, brotherhood, risk,
Absolutely.
responsibility in?
And that's one of the things I found, in the military, we are we are we live with risk daily, right? Whether we're risking our lives or we're our livelihoods, and we get what it means to put our nose to the grindstone and sort of really build something from scratch. So that was it. I think for me, um, using everything I learned and we talked about this with CRR, with crisis relief and recovery. I've really found a niche that wasn't happening. There's a lot of different disaster relief organizations out there that do some great and tremendous work. But being a startup, really, we've only been going for about 3 years, 3 full years of operations now, starting with a very small team. And these are lessons that I learned from my working with special operations is like a very small, very committed team that's committed to train with each other, that's committed to trust each other. I think it's Simon Sinek talks about, the trust, and character that's so much more important, and you can train everything else. But having that integral core team of, okay, these are people I can trust in the foxhole. These are people that I can trust with me, and then taking that into the disaster relief realm. So using those military, mindsets, yes, but those military techniques and tactics and procedures that we always talk about, and bring that into disaster relief world.
Well, I mean, a lot of the structures are probably going to be the same: command, control, logistics, talk, all that kind of stuff that we've done every, radio time. Because some guys you hand radio for the first time, and it's like, well, I can't say
Yeah.
that phrase, but it's an ugly move.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you find that's a huge advantage? Like, hey, this just cuts down like 30% of the training.
Exactly. And that's why I talk to groups like this, and I talk to veterans, and veterans plug right in because they get it. They've done it before in a different area, but that's what we do. And I really see the need because where we bridge is in a normal disaster, the sort of command and control resides at the county level. So these are county councilmen or an emergency manager that works at the county. Normally, he's in charge of, or he or she is in charge of the 911 organization, and so they'll run the 911 for the county, and then in the very rare occasion that a disaster happens in that county, they're now the big boss and they have to run an emergency operations center. They have to coordinate with fire and police and search and rescue and volunteers and aid and the state and try to connect with federal. And they're just out of their depth. It's not because of anything wrong with them. It's just that that's not what they're built. Many of them are just career bureaucrats. They've grown up in the sort of the county council. I work with one emergency manager. She started out as a 911 caller, then a receptionist for emergency management, and then she's now the emergency manager for her county. And so that's her experience. She doesn't have a military background. She doesn't have a fire or police background. So in the case of a widespread disaster, a lot of these emergency managers don't know what to do. So what we do, we come in and we bolster that county effort, working in coordination with Emergency Operations Center, fire and police, and we bring in that expertise, not to take over for the county, but to help the counties to support the EOC with those roles like logistics or volunteer management or comms or any of the various things that need to happen. And what we normally do, we set up a small talk, uh, an operations center. We take a neighborhood, uh, an underserved neighborhood generally, because a lot of the big guys, the big teams that you hear out there will blanket a downtown or blanket a city, and they can cover a lot. But there are still underserved neighborhoods that slip under the radar. We adopt one of these neighborhoods, set up an operations center, and then become that network and coordination hub by finding the need and finding the resources to fill it through nonprofits, lots of partners, through maybe that's an EOC function, that's a county function. So all of that was built on my military background and coming in, okay, working in JOCs, working in TOCs, working in air operation centers, where we can say, you know what, with a little bit of structure and some people that are trained to do multi roles, and to plug in. So, when one has to leave, one volunteer has to go, they've got a birthday party for their kid back home, I can plug another one in and say, okay, you've been trained up. You know how we do logistics. You can go right off.
Yeah, set up that convoy, get that crap going. Can you kind of spill on, the hurdles you had jumping from the military mode to nonprofit boss life? I gotta imagine your intel and ops background gave you a huge leg up, but were there any habits you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that I did have to get used to working in the nonprofit world, and if this is something that interests anyone out there as well, some things, common sort of hurdles you'll have to get over, and this was my first 5 years, sort of afterwards was like learning this is nonprofit is about as at least the culture of most nonprofits is about as far as you can get from military culture, right? So you've got a lot of hardworking people who sacrifice a lot. They don't get paid a lot. Um, so it's not like when I ask for something, it's not like, okay, 2 days turnaround. It'll be like, oh, well, yeah, 2 weeks or 2 months, or I have to keep reminding people. So yeah, you rub your head. But that was me for the first 5 years trying to get into that mode of, okay, this is a different situation. I've got to come alongside. Even even in the Air Force, it was tough. It wasn't like cracking the whip, but it was put your arm around somebody. How can I help you do this job? How can it's a lot of coaching in the nonprofit world, a lot of they're not getting paid a lot. So, you put up with a lot. So that was working for other people's nonprofits. So when I made sure to build a nonprofit, I built it with people that I could trust that would get the work done. And so we found a really great core of people that even though they're volunteers, even though many of them sacrifice and are part-timers, perhaps, that they know like, okay, we're gonna get some shit done, And so that finding those people and one of the reasons why we built our own is to make sure we started with that core and with that ethos. So there is a transition, whether you're moving into the commercial world, but especially moving into the nonprofit world.
Something you said there kind of struck me as like nonprofits. Like everybody that I've known outside of the military works for a nonprofit. They tend to be the academic bookish people first, and then the doers second. I'm gonna guess that's
Mhm.
exactly the opposite of how you experience it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm as anal as the next guy, and I can run a spreadsheet, but at the same time, in the industry we're in, it's it's boots on the ground that are making the impact. And so I hate having to do the admin. I've got some fantastic people that help me with the admin, but like you guys, perhaps guys and girls out there, you want to get your hands dirty. You want to get your boots on the ground. So think about that. The type of job, do you want to be locked into an office? And I made sure that no matter what I do, I'm not locked into a desk. For example, one of the when I was in Spain, it was a lot of training, a lot of teaching. And so I took many of the classes outside, climbed a mountain, taught on the top of a mountain, all these people who were preparing for the nonprofit world thinking this guy's beasting us, not quite beasting, but it was going up this mountain, to do our classroom in the woods on a mountainside. So yeah, I've always been one not don't want to be stuck behind a desk.
Yeah. And plus, if the person's terrible, you could just leave them on the mountain and your problem
There you
solved.
go. There you go. Yeah. It's a good
We
way
don't
of
have to
weeding
deal,
them out.
yeah, we don't
But what I've
have
found
to deal with
is
Carl again. Uh,
there's a
so,
place for
how's your faith?
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, there is. There is. Yeah, not everybody's gonna be swinging a chainsaw, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah.
So how's your faith factored into building these, into the shift and building these orgs? Maybe like warrior shepherd.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so just to reiterate, you're breaking up a little bit. It's probably
Okay.
my internet. So you ask, how does my faith fit into all this?
Here, I'll say it again. Hopefully it goes through. So how's your faith factor into the shift and building these orgs? Maybe through something like Warrior Shepherd.
Yeah. So very early on, that was the name of my blog, Warrior Shepherd, and and that's what I was trying to mix when I realized that, okay, I'm coming out of one culture, the military culture, into a very dramatic, vastly different culture. And trying to meld those two cultures through this warrior shepherd ethos. So realizing that, and this is something really that hit me, and this faith wise, and I'll give my story a little bit. While I was in the desert on I think it was my first deployment. Um, yeah, I was really struck because I had this plan laid out for my life that I was going to be a career. I was going to do my career in the Air Force. I was going to do 20. Then I was going
Astronaut.
to go, what's that?
Astronaut.
Yeah, I was going to be an astronaut. That was, yeah. But man, you've done your research. That's great. That's awesome. I was going to do my 20, going to be an astronaut, sure. But I was going to then be, a traditional pastor, work in a church or something like that. But I was really struck um, when I was in the field there and really inspired. Like, this is right? This now, what we're doing here is truly living. And what I mean by that is, and you guys know this, if you've been deployed, if you've been in places where you're taking your life into your hands every day, that when you live on that edge, there's something special, right? There's something, that liminal, if we want to get philosophical about it, that's that liminal area, that gray area where you're living you're living somewhere else, right? It's not like it doesn't feel like real life because it's just you're in this zone, right? So I was in this zone. I thought to myself, look, how do I how do I wrap my head around, oh, I'm going to do the traditional 20 years, go up, rise up in rank, then go into faith, sort of a church job or something like that. And I was really hit and touched and thought, I want to be living on this edge. I want to be living in a place where I'm taking, I am taking my life into my own hands. I am working hard on a mission where I'm alongside other people who are committed to this mission and committed to protecting me and our brotherhood in this mission, that I didn't want to leave that place. Right. So this was a challenge for me. I didn't want to leave that special place of that leading edge of life, right? Where you've got that, where you're living on that edge. So that was one of those things. When I looked forward into my 20 years in the military, this career I was going to have, it was less of living on that edge and more of sitting behind a desk, whether that was a Pentagon job or a staff job or a command job. And it was m more of that and less of living on the edge. So it was that point, Ernie, when I said, you know what, I'm going to take a bit of a risk. I'm going to forego the next 10 years and that sort of easy, not easy, but that pension, that lifetime of, healthcare and stuff like that. I'm going to forego that so I can stay on this edge. And and so even when I moved to Spain, it was how can I portray that to these young people that we're training to go out to do various jobs in nonprofit and humanitarian world, to say that's where we want to be. That's where life is, and that's where we're most effective when and we are I don't know how to put it. That's when we're most effective. That's when we're like hitting on all cylinders, when we're doing what we're called to be doing. And at least that's what I believe. So the warrior shepherd concept was an idea of we can be that shepherd, we can be that, have that faith background, but we can also be warriors and be able to battle for something we believe in, whether that's human trafficking, whether that's orphans and adoption, whether that's faith and spirituality, whether that's inner city, whether that's drugs, the drugs and fentanyl epidemic, all of these things, whatever you're passionate about, to be able to hit that full force and to be able to marry those two things, to be able to love people and to shepherd them into something new, but be able to say, look, this is something I'm passionate about and something I cannot see happen anymore, and I want to change it. And so that to me, that's sort of my background and what drives me every day. So I appreciate the question, and I hope I haven't taken that in a weird direction. But yeah.
No, you remind me of a buddy of mine because it always kind of vexed me, when I was younger because he was an A-10 pilot and the guy was a beast in the jet. I mean, this guy was a beast in the jet. And you know what he did full time? He wasn't a pilot full time. He was a pastor at a small church in Maine. And I
Okay.
could never have my head around it. I was like, man, you are literally the machine gun pastor. Because he'd come back from, and he wouldn't have anything on the jet. So he was out there doing the job.
Nice.
And it took me a little while to kind of like get that, that
Mm,
you could have that warfighter mentality, but also that faith and work them together. But it's totally doable, and there's a lot of rewards that come on the giving side after that with that knowledge, that training, that background experience.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so for anybody like kind of eyeing this route, what moves did you make to spot nonprofit gigs that matched your military chops and strategy, team building, chaos, that kind of
Mm,
stuff? What did
mhm.
they look for?
Well, what I always tell people, but it's very easy to say, look, I've got an idea for a nonprofit. I'm going to start from scratch. I want to be Dave's nonprofit. Um, but I always tell people, serve somewhere else first, learn the ropes. It's very, I've started probably three or four nonprofits in one in Spain, a couple in England, a couple in America, and it's just it's really a lot of work administratively, the setup, the applications, the books and the accounting, and a lot to do. And it's very hard. So yes, I have started CRR about 3 years ago, but that was after 10, 12 years of working in other nonprofits, seeing the good and the bad. So yeah, if this is anything that people are interested in, if you're passionate about a cause, there's probably nonprofits you are aware of already, whether you donate to them or support them or follow them online. They're already there. So rather than start anew, see how you can volunteer for them, see how you can work for them. Look at that. There's just as many jobs in the nonprofit sector that you are going to probably take a hit and it's not going to pay as good as Amazon, but you're taking that hit because you believe in what you're working for. So yeah, look for those jobs, volunteer if you can. You probably already do. If you're passionate about a cause, you're probably already out there volunteering. Continue to do that. Look for jobs. At, there are nonprofits out there that need people with military experience. There are nonprofits out there that need people with that military mindset that are going to get the shit done, right? So please don't sort of like, don't even, I'm not thinking about that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, that's the thing. If and then build into that, and then if you realize, okay, well, there's this cause, and I don't think anybody else is doing it, and I don't think there's a niche that we could fit. Then maybe think about starting your own, founding your own. As a nonprofit founder, yeah, I recommend against it, unfortunately. No. But yeah, absolutely. Serve where you're passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, getting paid well is great and all, but fulfillment is better, and it doesn't necessarily cost you any money. It's
Absolutely. That you can't put a price on it. You honestly can't put a price on it. And I know I say that as somebody who's working on a nonprofit and going to ask for volunteers and interns and things like that. But you can't put a price on believing what you're doing every day and wanting to come into work. And my wife has asked me, I'm 50 years old now, so I'm like right over that, right at the crest of that hump, right? And so my wife is like, wow, what are you going to do when you grow up? Like, what's next? Where are you aiming to? And I'm like, this is exactly where I want to be. Um, I, I really feel like all my military experience and all my sort of the nonprofit side have come to a head, and I don't want to be doing anything other than this, and I want to grow what we're doing at CRR. So, yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but yeah, it's fulfilling. That's all I'm saying. It's very much fulfilling.
So you mentioned CR a bunch of times. So what's CR really about when it comes to like training folks, the gear prep, and deploying for disasters? Got any good deployment stories you quarterbacked you could share, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, where to start? So yeah, so I'll give you a little bit about CR, talk about some recent deployments and some things we've done, so you get a feel of who we are. And then, please, if you have any questions, start thinking of them, putting them in the chamber, and let me know, as we go on. So like I said, CRR does that sort of command and control, but not in command, more of a partner. And so we're just trying to fill the needs of the people there that are hurt by disaster. We're normally working for people who are underinsured or uninsured, and so we're doing this all volunteer based. We go in, we have a small team of trained people, so you can. Our mission is to train and prepare and then deploy. So I very much believe, and this is probably another military thing, my job is training as much as anything else. And whether that's preparedness for communities, for county governments, for churches and community groups, or whether that's training up our own volunteers, that's a big part of what we do. So we train, we have an online training portal. It's a 2 or 3 hours of online training, which allows people to come out and partner with us, and volunteer with us in our deployments. Then we have a long weekend training for our immediate relief team. These are the coordinators that are going to have a role in that talk, if you were. And this is a little bit of classroom, but very quickly we get our backpacks on and do some long distance hiking and some scenarios, exercise, mass cal, do a damage assessment scenario in a fictional village, which you guys have probably done some fun stuff with too. So that's our training. But then we deploy, we put the call out. Like I said, primarily 95% volunteers. So we put the call out to our database of volunteers, say, can anyone come? Hurricanes just hit Florida, or it's about to hit Florida. Who can make it? Um, Very often we'll get donations to be able to cover people's transportation, whether that's airfares or driving down their mileage costs. A lot of times people donate their mileage costs as well. We get down, we get set up, we start damage assessing, we do our work. And then as long as people can do it, if they can do 4 or 5 days away from work, great. If they can do a week, if they've got the flexibility or time, they can come for a week, go home for a week, come back for a week, whatever. But yeah, we're super flexible. But because we're all trained to that same standard, we can plug and play, and people can come and go, and it works really well. Just to give you a flavor of some of the things we do, I was just recently in Alaska. I don't know if this was sort of an under the radar disaster, but the remnants of a Pacific typhoon came up and hit western Alaska, and flooded out a lot of these villages, where the Yupik tribal people, we call them Eskimos, but they're tribal Native Americans. They fish and hunt, and they live on the permafrost out there. A lot of marshes. That water from the typhoon, the storm surge came, got into their homes, destroyed all their livelihoods. They are subsistence hunting and fishing. So that's what they do. They hunt and fish all spring and summer, so that during the winter they can eat as well. So we are working currently in Alaska. We don't have any boots on the ground anymore, but we're still coordinating aid to them, trying to rebuild their capabilities to do their fishing and hunting, things like ATVs, repair, fishing boats and outboard motors. We're trying to get into there, as well as building materials to build back some of their homes. If you've seen any pictures, these homes were pushed off their foundations, a lot of them sort of just in one sort of lump at the end of a village. Um, but again, there's not many people out there. You can only reach these villages by helicopter or small bush plane landing on gravel airstrips. So this is not where you're going to see your massive amount of volunteers showing up. Those are the
Help
places. Yeah, those are the places we
logistics train
go.
too.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that was Alaska. Hurricane Helene was our big one last year. Traditional sort of disaster relief, whether that's getting aid out to people who are cut off and their bridges are washed away, mucking out their homes from floodwaters, and then rebuilding them as well. So sometimes we do the work ourselves, chainsaw work, rebuilding work, muck and gut teams. But sometimes, many times, we work with partners who are experts at those things, and that we can give them each sort of a task out of the many things that need to be done to help people after disaster.
Yeah, it's tough stuff, especially getting crap up there. I mean, that's a lot of flights.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, as the winter sets in, the rivers start to freeze and they can start driving things out on the rivers. Um, but even that is obviously, has its
Mm.
downfalls, so to
Yeah,
speak.
I've seen the
So
show.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is not easy to get to. It's not cheap to get to. Logistically, a lot of challenges. So we're helping the county council up there, or it's the tribal council there rather than the county. But yeah, we're working with them, and we'll probably be working into the spring with sending volunteer rebuild teams up there.
It kind of reminds me. I remember the first time I deployed, I think to Kuwait in 2000 for Southern Watch. A buddy of mine looked at me after there for like a month. He's like, I love this shit. And I was like, why is that? Because you're standing in a hair dryer. He's like, nah, dude. All I worry about is I get up, I eat breakfast, I work, I eat dinner, I go to sleep. That's it.
Yeah,
That's my only concern. I was like, and the older I get, the more I look at it and go, it's kind of cool. Just like you're only mission focused, all the other stuff's there. You just care
that's it.
about getting it done. There's no noise.
That's it. Yeah. And it allows you to focus a lot, and say, look, all the distractions are gone. I know my job. I just do my job, and this sense of fulfillment. And don't get me wrong, we have a softer side too, and many of our we joke at each other. We cry way too much, because we're working with families that are devastated, and families that just don't, one, they're in chaos. This has never happened to them before, probably. Um, they will never happen again. They have no idea what's coming. The government is not set up. FEMA's not set up to help them in the way that they need help. And so it's a very hard time. And so being able to have that background where I won't say we thrive in chaos in the military, but we're
We do.
used to it. Yeah. So we're used to it. So we can come in there and, as my wife says, I'm like so calm, I'm almost horizontal. It's just like, it's just we come on there with a calm strength, and be able to lend a hand, helping hand, and put an arm around someone. So we're not all sort of mission, 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 go, go, go. We can stop. We can sit with a homeowner. We can hug a homeowner, listen to their stories, sort of help see how we can help them. It's a great part of the job. It's an extra perk on the job, really, to be able to help people at their neediest.
Yeah, it is. It's yeah, thinking back, what's kind of blown your mind, or maybe you felt most rewarding about swapping war zones for relief work and mentoring? It's there's similarities, but there's huge differences too, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing, and a couple things just leap out at me. Um, People are looking for what we have, honestly, and I think this goes with for everything, whether you're looking for a job, or people are looking for the kind of traits that the military has built into you over the past years. Um, People are searching out that, whether that's in a business role or a nonprofit role or just in life. They're looking for people that can be calm under pressure. They're looking for people that can be strong. They're looking for people that have skills and aren't afraid to use them. They're looking for people who have sort of a mind that can organize things for them. Um, and so what I've found is all of the non-veterans on our team are like blown away by this, by something we'd be like, well, yeah, there's a stand-up brief and going around and not sitting and chatting about every little thing, but just saying, okay, that can be a sidebar. We'll talk about that later. Let's move on to the next. People are just like, you guys, this is amazing. I've never seen a meeting go like this before. I've never seen like you guys are on it and you're thinking outside the box and you just yeah, so that has been an eye opener for me, and I think you guys should key in on that and value that in yourself. Um, the other thing that's been surprising to me in the disaster relief world is the fact that FEMA, and even I, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I built this, I thought, look, we're going to show up at a disaster. I'm going to report into the FEMA incident commander, and they're going to be like, okay, crisis relief and recovery, you take that 5 square mile area or these 3 blocks, and we're going to do that and this, and it's going to be all plant. No, it's not like that. And many people think, many of the homeowners that we serve think, okay, well, where's FEMA? They're going to fix my house. They're going to hand me a check. They're going to make everything better. And it's just, as we've seen, it's just not what FEMA's built to do. So, and I've learned this. And again, it's not, yes, government bureaucracy aside and everything else and bloat and everything else. FEMA was never built to do that. They're there to train up counties and state government officials, and they're there to hand out checks. And so many people are, say, oh no, we're going to wait for FEMA. And it's like, FEMA ain't coming. This is us. So if whether you've been in a disaster zone yourself or been affected by a disaster, or if, hope God you're not, but when you are, don't wait. It's only grassroots organizations. It's only neighbors helping neighbors. It's only yourself that you can count on. So be a and this is what I, train on when I do preparedness training and things like this. The only one you can count on is yourself. So be prepared for yourself,
Yeah.
be prepared for your family. Yeah, and be prepared for your family and then be prepared for your neighbors and your community. It behooves yourself. It behooves yourself. I don't know. I'm just making
It
words up.
behooves you.
It behooves you to do these things and be prepared. And I think we all have felt that, and especially being in the military, we've got that mindset probably a bit more than other people. But yeah, a lot of what we do now is help people be prepared, whether that's just a little bit of, and in myself, it's like a little bit of mindset to say, okay, it's come down to me. Just being prepared there is a good starting place that you're not waiting for someone else to come help you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's as we saw last year, FEMA, yeah, it does not do what we think it does.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So just I know you guys don't care, but in a week or so, the FEMA sort of council is meeting and going to decide the sort of the future direction of or the FEMA Review Council or whatever it's called, the future direction of where FEMA is going. We're listening intently to see where that is because I really feel like CRR can help fill those gaps for state and county. So yeah, we'll find out more.
yeah, yeah, I
Should be
mean,
interesting.
it's up our alley. It's that command control chaos that so like what traps do you see vets trip into when dipping into nonprofits and kind of how do we sidestep them based on your ride?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I sort of touched on it before, and thinking it's going to be um, like the military, thinking it's going to be okay. I'm going to come in here and sort of turn this place around. I've done that on a previous place. And yeah, that was the one I got laid off on when COVID hit, and there wasn't enough money to continue paying everyone. But I tried my best to work with them to try to say, okay, guys, this trust me, this will work. Um, so yeah, it's like I said, it's a lot about culture. Once you get into a new place, whether that's nonprofit or anything else, you've got to suss that culture out, whether even beforehand. But having these internships, having these sort of being able to dip your toe in, find out the culture, see what that culture is about. And there's some cultures that you could say, yeah, I can make this work, but there's some that can't. Um, and in the nonprofit world, you get a wide mix of cultures. And what is what's the core behind it? What is the goals of an organization? And there's stated goals, and then there's the day-to-day, how do we operate? Make sure those are matching up. So yeah, as always, test the cultures in any new organization you're working with.
Yeah, and pay a little attention to the way the money goes too, because there are good ones and then there are money makers that are
Absolutely. Oh,
profits.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I won't even get started there because I just get up on my soapbox
Yeah,
as
we're,
one of
we're
those
probably thinking
one of
the
those
same ones.
little nonprofits. And that is a good litmus test. How much of the money is getting to the people that you say you're serving? And there's a lot of sketchy accounting that goes into that too, to say, okay, this is how much money is getting into. But once you peel back some of those layers, it's less and less. And bigger organizations, and this is why we never want to be a big organization, because those big organizations have to pay for fancy offices and new carpeting and a fleet of trucks and new uniforms and
Executive
everything.
pay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. It's so hey, a little bit of fun time. Tell a tale on volunteer magic, like from one of your ops, maybe one of your regular folks, fresh out vet that kind of turned the tide in a wrecked area.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, I've got this guy. Let's call him Joe. I know I could make something up on the fly, but um, oh yeah. I, one of I mean the I've got two stories, I guess. Um, one's not a vet, but it's someone that was massively impacted and now has changed their life. Um, A lot of what we do is coordinate spontaneous volunteers and walk-up volunteers during a disaster. Many people in the neighborhood, they say, well, my home was unaffected, or I fixed whatever leak I had in the house, or some whatever. I would now want to help other people. And so we help those people find the needs and get them to work and give them site leads and things like that. And so we get hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds, of come out to volunteer. And that's one of our jobs to coordinate that. But one of those volunteers that came out on a just a like, I haven't been affected. I am in a rental apartment and I was above the flood zone and stuff like that. So they came out, Monica, and she came out was awesome. She's like, "Oh, would you mind if I came back tomorrow?" I said, "No," or we said, "No, no, no, fine, that's fine." She ended up coming back every day for a week, said, "Oh, I've got to go home to do this and that." Went home, came back, volunteered for another month. This was in Fort Myers, Florida, after Hurricane Ian. So she volunteered for a month, and then now she's still in that community. She quit her job where she was working. She's still in that community, working in a community center now, working with some of the elderly. And I, the problem is I want her on my team to get a deployment and on our deployments, but she's like, I've got a heart for these people now, and she's poured into that and changed her life. So that's one of the ways that just like one day I've got a free day, I'm going to volunteer, has now changed the trajectory of her life, and she's working, and helping people on the daily, and she's great, and she's one of she when she can deploy with us, she's one of our superstars. Um, the other one is the guy actually who turned me on to Seven Eagles Group, Josh, and he attended our training. He was like, "Oh, this is what I've been looking for all my life." It probably wasn't all his life, probably a couple months. But I said, "You guys are great. I can use my skills." He was a loggy. He's like, I can slot right in. I can see where this is necessary, and he's loved it. He's deployed 2 or 3 times. He's been to North Carolina. He's been to Florida. He helps now with our training, and he's so passionate about it. He continues to connect with veterans and sort of point our way and say, you need if disaster relief, if you can help, this is something you need to do. So he's a great dude, one of our probably the most involved veteran we've got.
That's fucking awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing that, especially the woman who like changed her entire life vector, saying, "I'm just going to volunteer today," and then
Yeah.
she's helping people. She probably sleeps great at night outside of the tragedy portion of it, knowing that she's helping.
Yeah. And now the thing about Fort Myers, the work we did there turned a neighborhood around. So there was a neighborhood there of sort of multi not multi-generational, but so they had been descendants of migrant workers 2 or 3 generations ago. So they were given Habitat for Humanity houses. They didn't have any mortgages, so they didn't carry any insurance on their homes. So an entire, 3 mile square of people that had no insurance and their homes were all underwater. But we were able to go in, change, rebuild, bring in partners, bring in the funds to rebuild these homes. And so 18 months later, there was no sign of that hurricane or the homes that had been completely gutted and destroyed. So she's now staying behind to even improve that work there. So yeah, that's such a great story down there in Fort Myers.
That's fantastic. Dave, thanks a ton for coming out, brother. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it. Any closing
absolutely.
thoughts you'd like to
I hope
share?
it was beneficial for you all and for everyone on the call. Um, I don't know if there's any questions or any information, but I can send you some links and different things if anyone's interested in volunteering or potentially interning. That's something to think about. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, speaking of your spots, like we talked about that briefly today. So what positions are you looking to fill? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so like I said, I think what we're looking at, so we're very small. So we've got an operations director, we've got a part-time development or fundraiser, we've got a part-time admin person, everything from sort of admin and HR to project-based things. So one of the projects we're working on now, we've got donated a fifth wheel trailer. So we've got to kit that out and make it a mobile command center for our teams to operate out of. So the comms, the tech, everything that needs to be done, the mechanics of that need to be done. So a lot of short-term projects right now as far as intern work goes. The other thing I was telling Ernie about earlier is our comms, tracking teams, making sure they're safe. We're looking at doing some Blue Force tracking type tech on our teams and our vehicles, and our interops, our comms with other nonprofit organizations. So that would be another project, sort of short term, and then build in field team leaders. So one of the things we're trying to do now is find another building. We're not there, but building to a full-time role, hopefully in the next 6 months, where we're another field leader. Like I can go out, lead a team, do an advon, say, yep, we've got partners here, we've got a mission here, and then leading that team on the ground. So just, yeah, building that up and building that expertise up, understanding our TTPs and our SOPs and all the acronyms. But yeah, that's sort of a snapshot of some of the things we're looking for in the next year.
That's been awesome. Hey, Dave, thanks a ton for spending some time with us. I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Hearing about the great stuff you're doing in shitty places. So thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Awesome.